Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford, and in this video I'm going to discuss with you a subject that I've been working on with my students in my Advanced Old Norse class on Zoom. This is something that I've discussed in other contexts before, but what I'm trying to get them to do is read the very difficult courtly meter of the Old Norse skald. And their most prestigious, most difficult meter is the one called dróttkvætt in Old Norse reconstructed pronunciation. This involves very short lines for a modern audience. It involves rhyme on second to last rather than last syllables. It's a lot of complications that make it difficult to follow, and I think that the best way to learn how to read it and understand the limitations that the poet is working with is to write it yourself. So this is a little how-to on how to do that, focused on how to do it in your own living language. Now, why would you want to do this? I don't know. Some people consider this sort of thing fun, or maybe you're very deeply interested in Old Norse literature and you want to sort of sample the style for yourself. So, the thing that makes skaldic meters really different from Eddic meters, the meters that are used in the Poetic Edda and are used to tell stories, is typically they're just one stanza at a time rather than linked lists of stanzas like in Havamal or Völuspá or some other Eddic poem that you might be familiar with, although there are long skaldic poems. And typically, instead of telling a narrative, they are occasional, right? They are remarks. Someone is belittling an opponent. He's celebrating his king. He's talking about how great he is. He's talking about how much he loves a woman or how much she broke his heart or something like that. So their content is a little bit different. They also are vastly more complicated than the Eddic meters. So I have various videos where at various different points in my career I've tried to explain more about these meters. I have a less complete series, it's more recent, video that tried to be more complete a long time ago but has some things that I might consider mistakes now. I don't know, I haven't looked at it in like 8 years. Here I just want to kind of do this as a how-to. So, say you want to do a skaldic stanza in dróttkvætt. You're going to have 8 lines. Each line is going to have 6 syllables. Now that is not very much for modern poetry, right? I mean, the classic English meter is iambic pentameter, which is 10 syllables. Of course, Old Norse is a more compact medium than English, just so much inflection that you can pack more into 2 syllables than often you can into 4 syllables in English. But if you want to be strict about it, you've got 6 syllables in English. However, you can have 7 syllables in a line if 2 of them in a row are low stress. Now, if they're low stress, they can't take any of the alliteration or rhyme that's in the line. They just have to be really low stress words, like a pronoun, you know, I, me, you, or a preposition in, on, at. Or in an Old Norse context, actually verbs can be very low stress. It's a little bit foreign to English, but you could try making words like am or are or is low stress, but you have to have 2 of those low stress words or 2 low stress syllables in a row in order to make 7 syllables. Now, also, and this is one of the hardest things to get, and I've realized that in talking with students live and trying to get them to do this. There is rhyme in skaldic poetry, but it's not rhyme like we're used to. So on odd lines in your stanza, lines 1, 3, 5, 7, it's, okay, let me back up for a second. There's no fixed pattern of beats or stresses, right? It's not da-da, 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 da-da. But the last 2 syllables of each line have to be da-da. They have to be a trochee, stressed syllable then unstressed syllable. So classically in Old Norse, that's a 2-syllable word. So center, or hunter, or bottle, or humming, or housing. I don't know, right? It can be a 3-syllable word, but then you have to have, again, still stressed, unstressed, just the last two syllables. So it can be recenter or attacker, something like that. But it has to end stressed, unstressed. Okay, now that last stressed syllable, that second to last syllable from the end of the line, the nail in the plank, to use the Old Norse imagery, in an odd line, in lines 1, 3, 5, 7, has to be in so-called skåthending with another stressed syllable in the line, right? This can't be a word with low stress, low emphasis. Now, skåthending means that it ends with all the same consonants. So, for example, if you have, attacker, your second to last syllable is tack, so some other stressed syllable in the line has to end in k, right? It has to be reek or bake or awoke or something like that. If it's, say, what's something else I could say? Taxing, then you're going to want it to end in x, right? So you're going to want a word like attacks somewhere else in the line, or box somewhere else in the line, or 6 somewhere else in the line, right? But it has to be all the same consonants at the end. It doesn't have to be the same vowel though. So it's skåthending, it's like half rhyme. It ends in the same consonants, it does not fully rhyme. It can fully rhyme, but it's not required. In even lines, that second to last syllable has to be an avlhending. That means true, full rhyme. So if your second to last syllable, if your last two syllables in an even line, line 2, 4, 6, 8, are, say, frightened, then you need to rhyme with that completely, right? You need to have slight or bite or right or something like that to rhyme with that fright. Now, the Old Norse poets allow you to not count inflectional endings. So, for example, a possessive S or a past tense D in English might be excluded, so that you might, for instance, do avlhending of walked past tense with talk present tense and ignore that inflectional ending, that past tense D. Or you might consider skåthending of man's possessive with, run, because both end in N and we're ignoring that possessive ending S. You can choose to do that or not. They don't seem to consider it like cheating if you ignore those inflectional endings. Now, this does not exhaust the metrical demands of a dróttkvætt stanza. You also have to have alliteration, and in dróttkvætt it's much more strict than in etic meters. So the even lines, lines 2, 4, 6, 8, have to begin with a stressed emphasized syllable, and that has to alliterate with 2 of the stressed emphasized syllables, 2 of the lifts in the preceding odd line. So we might start our even line with the word tall, but then we have to have, 2 or town, or really both in the preceding odd line. Or we might start it with scale, and then in the preceding odd line we're going to want to see like skill, scope. Okay. Typically they don't care if it starts with 2 consonants and you only alliterate on 1. So for example, grace could alliterate with gone and geese. But I think you get a couple extra points in the poetry contest if you can, alliterate grace with, grass and green. They definitely try to alliterate sequences that start with S with similar sequences though. So you want to alliterate strong with string or strand, right? Instead of just alliterating strong with like scale or sand. So if you can do all these things together, you can create a Skaldic dróttkvætt poem. Now for me, if I'm working on composing one of these things, what I typically try to do, especially in the skåthending lines, the lines 1, 3, 5, 7 that require ending in the same consonants but not rhyming. I'm typically going to try to put my skothending and my alliteration on the same syllables, just because it makes it easier to find the right words to fit into all these parameters. So for example, if I'm ending with scaling, I am going to sort of search my memory bank. I'm going to put different vowels into that template scale. You know, I'm going to say, okay, what can I do with like skill, skull, that may be all that I can think of there. I typically just sort of run through a vowel chart, you know, E, I, A, O, U, Ow, I, O. Just try to put those into that template and try to figure out what might work. All right, I'm going to give you a quick word for my friends and partners at Grimfrost, and then come back and give you examples of this in both Old Norse and in English. All right, let's start with the stanza from Gunnlaug's Saga Ormstungu, Saga of Gunnlaugur Wormtongue, a great skald. This is a good example of a Skaldic stanza. Nu erek ut o øyri, alvangsbúin ganga, haps unni Guð greppi, gort með tóknum hjorfi, nakk skal helgu lokka, hausvin ek frá bollausan, loks með ljósum maki, lífsvelgs í tvo kljúfa. All right. Now, first thing, let's check our syllable count. Nu ut o øyri. So the first line has 7. Presumably that out, that adverb, and then that on, or that preposition in sequence are being counted as 2 low stress syllables, so he's getting away with it for that reason. Alvangsbúin ganga, that's 6. Haps unni Guð greppi, that's 6. Gort með tóknum hjorfi, that's 6. Nakk skal helgu lokka, 6. Hausvin ek frá bollausan, that's 7. So the vin ek, I work, I do, preposition and unalliterating, unrhyming verb, so those 2 in a row are allowing him to get 7 in. Loks með ljósum maki, 6. Lífsvelgs í tvo kljúfa, 6. All right. Now notice each line ends in a 2-syllable word, or 2-syllable word that's part of a compound. That gives you a trochee, a stressed then unstressed, emphasized then unemphasized syllable. Øyri, ganga, greppi, hjorfi, lokka, lausan, maki, kljúfa. In the odd lines, the second to last syllable ends in the same consonant as another syllable with stress in the line. So line 1, yr, and line 3, haps, grepp. Notice that he's ignoring that inflectional ending s, that genitive possessive ending s on haps. In line 5, nakk, lok, and in line 7, loks, mak. Once again, ignoring the s on loks to have it skull ending half rhyme with mak. In the even lines, 2, 4, 6, 8, that second to last syllable fully rhymes with the preceding stressed syllable. Vang, gong in 2, again ignoring the s. Gort, hjor in 4, ignoring the t on gort because that makes it a past participle, right? That's like the in English done, or the d in English heard, right? It's not part of the root do here. In line 6, it's house and louse, and in line 8, ljuv and kljúv, again ignoring, well, spelks is just a second word in a compound word, ljuv, spelks, so it doesn't even matter. Okay, and then notice that the even lines start with something that alliterates with 2 stressed syllables in the preceding odd lines. Alvangs, yr, because any vowel alliterates with any vowel. Gort alliterates back with Guð, greppi. Haus alliterates back with nakk, helgu. And lífsvelgs in 8 alliterates back with loks, ljósum. And with that, we have a Skaldic poem. Now I am quite ready to walk out on the island. May God grant the poet luck with a drawn sword. I will knock the head from the swallower of Helga's love. Finally, I'll chop him in two with my bright sword, is what Gunnlaugur is saying there. He exchanges a lot of derogatory poems with this guy, Hrafn, his competitor, actually the winner of the love of this woman, Helga, they both love. Now let me show you what this can look like in English with something I did yesterday. Meant for that far mountain, matched in our attachment, I'll move, you won't want to, waiting wasn't fated. Your heart too's been hurting, heroine, unfairly disrespected. I peaked when paired with you in daring. Let's check our syllables. Meant for that far mountain, 6. Matched in our attachment, 6. I'll move, you won't want to, 6. Waiting wasn't fated, 6. Your heart two's been hurting, 6. Heroine, unfairly, 6. Disrespected, I peaked when. 7 with that low stress id followed by a pronoun I, making 2 unstressed syllables in a row, so it's fine. Paired with you and daring, 6. Last 2 syllables of each line is a trochee, stress followed by unstressed syllable. Mountain, attachment, want to, faded, hurting, fairly, peaked when, daring. All right? And that second to last syllable is in odd lines going to end in the same consonants as another lift in that odd line. So mount, meant in line 1. Want, won't in line 3. Hurt, heart in line 5. And peaked, pecked in line 7. Now one thing you can do is write these out as couplets, right, across from each other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in that way you can maybe kind of remember that 1, 3, 5, 7 have the same characteristics, 2, 4, 6, 8 have the same characteristics. And our even lines, that second to last syllable fully rhymes with another stressed syllable in the line minus inflectional ending. So attach, match, ignoring that inflectional ending, id, matched. Fate, wait in 4, fair, hair in 6. Those may not rhyme for you because maybe you say heroine, maybe you say fairly. Sometimes you can make allowances based on your own personal accent or pronunciation of things. And then in 8, pair, dare, again ignoring the past tense ending d in paired. And then each even line starts with a lift, a stressed syllable that alliterates with 2 lifts in the preceding odd line. So in 2, matched alliterates with mint and mount in 1. In line 4, wait alliterates with won't and want in 3. In 6, hair alliterates with heart and hurt in 5. And in 8, paired alliterates with pecked and peaked in 7. Notice that in English, it's not always the first syllable of a word that alliterates. So sometimes you can have alliteration of something that's the first letter in one word with, the 6th letter in another word, just because English has a much more variable stress pattern than Old Norse, where it's always the first syllable of a word that alliterates. That is stress, excuse me. If you have a compound word, it can be the second word in the compound that alliterates, though. Let's do one more of these in Old Norse. This is going to be one by Hrafn, Gunnlaug's competitor from Gunnlaug's saga, Ormstungu. He's also doing something extra showy here, where often in couplets he uses the same word in each of the alliterating or rhyming syllables. Rodit sperð en sperða, sperð róknir gerði, voru roindi rondum ranngokken fyrir ver handan. Blóðug hug ek I blóði, blóðgokl áskor stóðu, sor fikken hlautsara, sor gamar en þrama. All right, syllable check. Rodit sperð en sperða, 6. Sperð róknir gerði, 6. Voru roindi rondum, 6. Ranngokken fyrir ver handan. We can make it 6 if we don't include the ear, which might be later insertion on fyrir. Otherwise, ear and then ver could be the unstressed syllables together, can allow you 7. Notice too, I guess actually that it hasn't happened yet. Okay, blóðug higeki blóði, that's 7, but ek pronoun and e preposition, it's fine. They're in sequence. We can have 7. Blóðgólg ofskor stóðu, 6. Sor fikin hlaut sora, 7. No, it's 6. Sor fikin hlaut sora, 6. Yeah. Sorgam enno thrama, that's 6. And notice words like rangokn in 4, sorgamar in 8, that N or R at the end of a word, so common in Old Norse. It's probably pronounced as another syllable, but it's not counted as a syllable for poetic purposes unless they write a vowel. They write an A, E, I, O, U, Y, Ash, U, O. Okay. Also, sorgamar, notice you're getting that rhyming syllable in line 8 on sorgamar, the second word in the compound, so you can do that. All right, second to last syllables per line. Sverða, gerði, rondum, handan, blóði, stóðu, sora, thrama. So we get all good trochees. And then in odd lines, we have that second to last syllable ending in the same consonants as another lift in the line. Sverð, sverð in 1, roind, rond in 3, blóð, blóð in 5, sor, sor in 7. Again, the sverð, sverð, blóð, blóð, sor, sor, it's him showing off. And then in the even lines, that second to last syllable fully rhymes with another stressed syllable in the line. So gerði back to sverð, handan back to rand, stóðu back to blóð, thram back to gam. And then the even lines all start with the same, with something that alliterates, either starts with the same consonants or starts with a vowel as the same as 2 lifts in the preceding odd line. So in 2, sverð alliterates back to sverð and sverð. In 4, rand alliterates back to reind and rond. In 5, blóð alliterates back to blóð and blóð. And in 8, sor alliterates back to sor and sor. And again, using the exact same words, sverð or blóð or sor, is him showing off, but it still demonstrates the principle. This means, my sword is reddened with blood, but the other swordsman reddened his sword and mine. Our shields were tested hard. I think bloody blood geese, that means ravens, stand in my bloody brain, and the wound-loving wound vulture, the raven, got to wade the wound river. So kinnings are a huge part of the skald's art. Kinnings, more or less, I mean, blood goose or wound vulture is a good demonstration because a goose or a vulture is the same class of thing as a raven. It's a bird. But by saying it's the blood one or the wound one, well, which bird is associated with blood or wounds? It's the raven because it eats dead men on the battlefield. Classic kinning type. I think kinnings are kind of their whole other subject, something to make a video about, maybe with Taryn Wills at the Skaldic project. That would be a good person to talk to this about, or just a good instructional video separate on its own. But kinnings like that help the poet to fit into the strict meter. So consider how you can say things really indirectly, or make kinning specifically if it's something that entertains you, in order to make this meter work, because it can be really hard to do if you're using just sort of normal, everyday English vocabulary. All right, well, that's a tutorial that I hope makes some sense about how to do the Skaldic meter dróttkvætt. Thank you, Patreon, so much for your support. Thank you to my Old Norse students, and particularly in this context, the Old Norse students in my advanced class who are leading me to try to teach people to do things that I haven't tried to teach before. And obviously, always teaching something helps you learn it yourself. And thanks to those buying my books. And from beautiful Colorado, the birds and I are wishing you all the best.